I think he had a very good summer. He went back to Robert Whaley Cohen's, and I mean, they've got great land and facilities to keep horses there, and he did really well. And the one thing that was very noticeable actually was sort of 3 weeks before he came in, I went up there to see the horses and very nearly didn't recognise him because he'd grown so much. I couldn't believe how much bigger he'd got, and literally in size. You'd say, I mean, horses will go on growing, but at 6 they should be getting to full maturity. And, you know, you might, if a horse has grown, you think he must get stronger.
I was going to say, I mean, he was only 5 when he started off last season in the Paddy Power. So do you think there could be more to come from him this season?
There should be. There could be. I mean, I know he's French, and a lot will say, well, yes, but the French horses are sort of, there's so much, they're brought on to be maturer, sharper types of horses, so they've actually, you know, they probably don't, their whole programme is geared to 4 and 5 year olds, so they don't, by the time they're 6, they start to think they're old. We still think they're young.
And this season, be very much sort of working back from Cheltenham. How wound up will he be for his first start in the Betfair Chase?
Oh, I hope. I mean, yeah, sure. It's not the King George, which is what, you know. I'm not. The Betfair isn't a prep race. It's you've got to start somewhere. It is, to all intents and purposes. It's been slotted in perfectly to make it the obvious race to go prior to Kempton. But I mean, no way do we consider it to be a prep race. I want to win it. And then the King George, and then we'll think again. But he'll be wound up. As best we can. We're just sort of struggling with the weather at the minute because, you know, it has been very dry, and I think a lot of the horses we're just having to go through routine work. It is sometimes a little bit unexciting, and therefore they get rather lackadaisical about it. But I think we can start changing the routine pretty shortly.
And at this stage, you're thinking of 3 races: Betfair, King George, Gold Cup.
No, to be honest, I'm not looking much further than I'd be looking at the Betfair, and I'd be hoping that takes us to the King George. Then we've got to start again. There'll definitely be a break. You know, you'd leave them alone for a fortnight. Now, whether we want another race in the meantime, the Aeon is there, I would think, is the obvious one if I wanted to do something, and then the Gold Cup. And then this year you have got a very good break between Cheltenham and Aintree. So I think a lot of horses, I mean, some of us did it anyway. We didn't with Long Run. We thought about it. We were actually going to do it until the last minute, and I think we both felt very relieved when we'd made the decision. We knew once we'd made the decision not to go to Aintree, we knew it was the right decision because we were both absolutely delighted that we weren't going. So it always tells you that you've done what you should have done, which wasn't to go. But I mean, I wouldn't rule it out this time, only because you've got another week and he's a year older.
And this time he's going to be starting off in the Betfair. He might be up against Corto Star. There's also a lot of young chasers coming through this season. Any that you sort of particularly see as likely dangers to him?
I think there's dangers everywhere. I mean, I think I probably thought that Masterminded would have been the horse that I would have, you know, that I definitely actually still would consider to be the most talented sort of horse around that I think will stay. And consequently, I mean, I'm sure that wasn't him at Aintree the other day. And there's a whole host of those horses coming out of the Sun Alliances and things from last year that are going to be pretenders, and you know, we're going to have to be as good as we can be to see them off.
And looking at the King George, Riverside Theatre chased home Long Run in the race last year. Is the King George once again the plan for that one?
Might just struggle there a little bit, in fairness, in that, as you know, he sort of had what was sort of verging on the beginnings of a fractured pelvis literally a week before the Ryanair, and that just tells you how difficult it is with these things. It's all very well saying we're going to go to the Betfair, we're going to go to the King George, and then we're going to go for the Gold Cup, and then we're going to do this, that and the other. It just doesn't happen just quite as easily as that. There's every single thing in the world can go wrong. And we only know that too many horses don't make it just literally the day before a race they go wrong. And one of the casualties last year, sadly, was Riverside Theatre, who must have been, well, he was favourite for the Ryanair, and you know, it's a bitter blow when things like that happen. So he's had a slightly longer holiday than because of that. So he hasn't started cantering yet.
So we might be looking New Year for him.
To be honest with you, the Ryanair is the only thing I'm after with him. be better off on the grass. Is this good? Okay.
Finian's Rainbow, second in the Arkle, one at Aintree. What's the plan for that one this season?
Well, you'd have to not surprisingly say he's not going to go any further than 2 miles. He's extraordinary. He was an Irish point-to-pointer. You'd think he'd be a stayer, and we were going 2.5 with him the whole way over hurdles. And I don't know, luckily we got an idea at the beginning of last season that maybe he was only a 2-miler. We soon found out that that was probably correct and left him there. I thought he was a bit unlucky not to win the Arkle, really. He'd done everything right, to be fair to you. It was just one of those days. But he's big and well and very strong. I'd probably like to start at Sandown. Probably like to do something like a racecourse gallop before that, just to sort of take the fizz out of him a bit, because first time out he can be pretty a bit exciting.
I remember speaking to you before Cheltenham last year, and you were quite excited about the prospect of Sprinter Sacre going over fences.
I could never really see him being a Cheltenham novice hurdler. He had to go there, but I can't believe that was his game. I mean, I'm hoping fences, which he's never seen one yet, will be the making of him. Yeah, he doesn't have to do a lot. He was a very good third in the Supreme, but I mean, if he's going to be a champion, it'll be over fences.
And lastly, Burton Port, we saw him second in the Hennessy.
Well, he's not back here yet. He sadly got a problem in the Hennessy, and he's still back up at Gledhill, which is Trevor Hemmings' stud up there. And he had a problem, which is in the Hennessy last year, so I should think he'd be back in about a month's time.
Okay, so you'd be hoping to start him off in the
He'll
new
be
year.
after Christmas, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Punchestown's is...
He got an injury at Aintree last year and had to have 2 screws put in a leg, which have been taken out, but he's starting ridden exercise this week. So it's going to be a long road back. He just hasn't got full flexion back in that joint, but it's improving all the time, so he'll be back.